HOA tried to block my dream home, so I used their own rules to defeat them. If you think building your dream home is hard, try doing it with a HOA that thinks they're running the Pentagon. I wasn't just fighting building permits, I was fighting Karen, the queen of the HOA, and she was ready to declare war over my porch light color, but she had no idea I knew her game. And this time I was playing to win. I've been a general contractor for over 25 years, built everything from cozy ranch houses to multi-million-dollar estates. But this was supposed to be my retirement project. My wife and I bought 2 acres in what was marketed as an exclusive quiet community just outside Phoenix, Arizona. It sounded perfect. Wide streets, friendly neighbors, and a modest HOA that supposedly kept the standards high. Translation, Karen's personal kingdom. From the moment I submitted my first design renderings for approval, I should have smelled the trouble. I posted a simple "coming soon" on our builder's Facebook page, Standard Marketing. Within hours, I had a comment from Gregory, head of the Architecture Review Board, which, let's be honest, is just Karen's puppet committee. I have serious concerns with your design. Concerns, I hadn't even broken ground. But okay, I'm a professional. I emailed Gregory directly, very politely, and explained that all our designs were preliminary, and we welcomed any feedback before official submission. Silence weeks passed. No response, not even a thanks. We'll review it. When we finally submitted the official design package to the HOA, full set of blueprints, materials list, landscaping plan, we got crickets. 2 weeks, nothing. 3 weeks, nothing. At this point, my wife joked, maybe they think if they ignore us long enough, we'll give up. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what they thought. But here's the part Karen and her cronies didn't count on. Unlike most homeowners, I read every word of the HOA bylaws before I bought the land. And buried in Section 4, Article 7 of the Architectural Review Rules, if the board does not approve or deny any application within 30 days of submission, the application shall be deemed approved. Yep, 30 days, automatic approval. And guess what? Day 29 was ticking away. So while Karen was busy planning her next backyard wine party and dreaming up new lawn color restrictions, I was planning something too. Justice, by their own rules, to be continued. Now let me tell you something about HOAs. They don't just deny your dreams outright. No, people like Karen are far too clever for that. They prefer to slowly smother your plans. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, or in this case, 1,000 concerns. Day 29 came and went. According to the bylaws, that meant my design was automatically approved. I thought it was over, but Karen wasn't about to give up so easily. On day 30, an email popped into my inbox, not from Gregory, not from the Architecture Review Board, but from Karen herself. We regret to inform you that your application has been flagged for further review due to potential non-compliance with community aesthetic standards. Aesthetic standards. My design followed their own rulebook to the letter. We even hired a landscape architect who had worked with 3 other properties in the same community, properties Karen had previously approved. I replied professionally, per Section 4, Article 7 of the HOA guidelines, the design has already been deemed approved by default. Further review is not applicable. No response. Instead, 2 days later, I received a formal letter taped to my front door, certified mail style, very dramatic. Cease and desist. No construction may commence until further notice. See, this wasn't about design anymore. Karen had realized she couldn't win by following the rules, so she was going to change the battlefield. She called an emergency HOA board meeting, which conveniently excluded me even though homeowners are supposed to be notified and allowed to attend. They sent out a notice declaring that new site development protocols were being introduced effective immediately, including all site prep had to be approved before breaking ground. Heavy equipment hours were restricted to weekdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and added $2,500 community impact fee for any construction vehicle larger than a pickup truck. My bulldozer, $2,500 per week. My crane, another $2,500, and these fees weren't in any of the original HOA documents. I wasn't new to HOA tricks. Years ago, I watched a buddy of mine lose $50,000 in legal fees because he didn't fight back early. I wasn't making the same mistake. I gathered every document, HOA bylaws, emails, the emergency meeting notice, the timeline showing the 30-day automatic approval. And then I politely emailed Karen and the HOA board. We appreciate your enthusiasm for maintaining the community standards. However, the recent policy changes are unenforceable retroactively, As our plans were approved prior to these changes, they do not apply to my project. Kindly refrain from further attempts to delay permitted construction. I CC'd the county permitting office. Just a little reminder that I wasn't playing alone. That must have rattled her because the next week a surprise inspection happened. Not from the county, from the HOA. A man named Doug, who I'd never met, showed up with a clipboard and a camera walking my property like he was the sheriff of Nottingham. "We're here to ensure compliance with the newly established site protocols," he announced. I told him politely he was trespassing and to leave immediately. Doug smiled and said, "Karen said homeowners consented to inspections when they joined the community." Not true. I knew the exact clause he was twisting. It allowed inspections for maintenance emergencies, not construction. Unless my lot was on fire, they had no authority. I escorted him off the property while calling my lawyer. The very next day, I posted a large sign on my front gate. "Private property trespassers will be prosecuted." HOA inspections require 48-hour written notice and an owner consent. Word spread fast. By now, the neighborhood was divided. Some longtime residents were rooting for me. Someone needs to stand up to Karen. Others, fearful of rocking the boat, warned me to just follow what the board says. But one neighbor, Linda, came forward quietly. She had served on the HOA board before Karen staged her little power grab 3 years ago. "She's done this before," Linda whispered. "She makes it impossible for people to build or renovate, then pressures them to sell. Her cousin's development firm buys the property. Cheap. That was the motive, not aesthetics, not noise, greed." Karen wasn't just enforcing the rules. She was creating obstacles to profit when people gave up. A few days later, as if the situation wasn't already ridiculous, Karen filed a formal complaint with the county permitting office. Unpermitted clearing and grading activity, she alleged. Complete nonsense, but it triggered a temporary stop work order from the county standard procedure while they investigated. Now construction was fully halted. My builder partners were furious. My wife was stressed to the breaking point, and Karen, she was throwing a wine and cheese community standards fundraiser in her backyard. I could hear the music from my property line. The nerve, but this wasn't my first rodeo. Remember that stack of documents? I had something Karen didn't expect. Proof the design had automatic approval. Records of all the new fees and protocols added after the fact. Witness statements including Linda's about Karen's history of manipulating the HOA for personal gain. It was time to stop playing defense. If Karen wanted a war, she was about to get one. And this time it wasn't just about building my dream home. It was about tearing down her little empire. If you think this was wild, wait till you hear what Karen did next. To be continued. I used to believe most HOA disputes were just a few grumpy, old folks trying to control mailbox colors and lawn height. I was wrong. This was warfare. And Karen? She wasn't just an annoying neighbor anymore. She was a full-blown tyrant with a clipboard and a hidden agenda. The very morning after I posted my private property sign, Karen struck back. This time she wasn't hiding behind passive-aggressive emails or shady board meetings. Nope. She showed up in person. At 8:15 a.m. while my wife and I were reviewing the Stopwork notice over coffee, Karen's white Lexus SUV rolled up our gravel drive. I stepped outside before she could even knock. "Good morning," I said, holding my coffee like I didn't have a care in the world. Karen didn't return the greeting. "Your contractor has been reported for violating environmental protection codes," she announced flatly. "Environmental protection codes. Excuse me. The gravel you brought in," she sneered. "It's causing dust displacement that could impact native plant life beyond your property line." I nearly laughed out loud. This wasn't a desert conservation area. This was a retired golf course subdivision, and my lot sat between two vacant properties filled with tumbleweeds and beer cans. Karen waved a piece of paper dramatically. "The HOA is issuing an environmental compliance fine of $5,000. That was it. Karen had officially crossed the line from nuisance to extortion. "Karen," I said calmly, "you and I both know this is retaliatory, and you know it won't hold up in court." "Maybe, maybe not," she smiled, "but legal fees are expensive, and most people don't bother fighting back." There it was, her entire strategy summed up in 2 sentences. Bury people in paperwork, bleed them dry with fees, force them to sell out of frustration. Linda had been right all along. "I'll see you at the next HOA meeting." I told her, "Bring your board, you'll want them there." That evening I made phone calls, first to my attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Carla, who specialized in HOA abuse cases. She'd fought battles like this before and won. Then to Linda, the former board member, who had already provided me with valuable insights. Linda, I asked, how many other homeowners has Karen pulled this stunt on? Her size said it all. At least 4. Maybe more. Some left quietly. Others sold after threats or construction delays bankrupted them. Can you get me their contact info? Already working on it. By the weekend, I had gathered 3 former homeowners and 2 current residents willing to testify Karen's reign of terror was no longer a secret. With Carla's help, we compiled a timeline of HOA abuse, multiple unauthorized fee demands, improper emergency meetings without community notice, retroactive enforcement of policies against pre-approved projects, trespassing for illegal inspections, coercion through environmental and compliance fines. We also dug into public records. Guess what surfaced? 2 properties sold under duress had ended up with a single development firm owned by Karen's brother-in-law, and there it was. The smoking gun HOA meetings were usually dull affairs. Attendance, maybe a dozen retirees discussing pool heater costs and dog waste stations. Not this time, word spread like wildfire. By the next scheduled meeting, the room was packed. More than 70 people, standing room only. Karen looked nervous for the first time. Gregory, the puppet on the architecture, review boards at silently avoiding eye contact. I waited until public comment opened. Carla stood beside me, folder in hand. Before we begin, I said, I'd like to present documentation relevant to the board's recent actions regarding my property. Karen started to interrupt. No, Karen. Carla's voice cut through the room like a knife. You'll want to let him finish? Or would you prefer we do this in front of a county judge? Silence, I continued, according to Section 4, Article 7 of the HOA bylaws. My design was approved by default after 30 days of no response. Yet the board imposed new fees and protocols not present in the original HOA guidelines. I laid out emails, letters, stop-work notices, environmental fines, testimonies from other victims. Then came the clincher. We also have property records showing that homes forced into sale after HOA disputes were later purchased by a development firm owned by Karen's own family. The gasp from the crowd was audible. Gregory buried his face in his hands. Karen attempted a rebuttal. These allegations are baseless. They're supported by official county records, Carla shot back. And if you dispute them, we'll happily proceed to court discovery, every email, every phone call, every board meeting. Note, Karen's face turned the color of bad yogurt. Furthermore, I added, I am requesting an immediate vote of no confidence in the current board leadership. Linda, bless her heart, had organized the residents quietly over the past week. People raised their hands, first in a trickle, then in waves. When the count finished, Karen's leadership was dissolved by an overwhelming majority. Gregory resigned on the spot. Carla handed over official notice that we'd be pursuing civil action for harassment and attempted fraud unless Karen agreed to rescind all fines and stop work orders, publicly apologize for the abuse of power, step down permanently from any HOA position. Karen tried to stall, but her allies were gone. Even her brother-in-law slipped out before the meeting ended. Within a week, construction resume without a single obstacle, Karen. She sold her house quietly and moved away. Rumor has it she's now renting in a community with no HOA. Oh, the irony. My wife and I finally watched as our dream home took shape. Every nail, every window, every wall was a reminder. Bullies thrive until someone reads the fine print. If you think this was wild, wait till you hear how the county responded after the HOA tried one last desperate move. To be continued. You'd think that would be the end of it. Karen was out. The board dissolved. Construction resumed, but when people like Karen lose power, they don't just disappear, they plot. 2 weeks into framing the house, I noticed something odd. A county inspector, someone I'd worked with before, stopped by looking a little sheepish. Hey, he said, I need to talk to you about a new zoning review. Zoning, we already cleared that months ago. I know, he nodded, but someone filed a petition claiming the original plat boundaries for this subdivision were never officially certified by the county. Translation: if the county had to re-verify the plat, my permit could be suspended indefinitely. I knew exactly who was behind it, not Karen directly. She wouldn't be that obvious, but probably her brother-in-law's development firm or one of her remaining allies. Luckily, I had Carla. That's a pretty desperate tactic, she said when I called, but not illegal unless they lied on the petition. So what's our play? We pull out the master covenant documents and subdivision records. We drove down to the county clerk's office that afternoon. The record's clear as day. The plat was certified in 1984. Even better, an amendment signed by the very same HOA, including Karen's signature from 5 years ago reaffirming those boundaries. Boom. But we didn't stop there. Carla's strategy wasn't just to defend me anymore. It was time to go on offense. We're going to file a cease and desist against the petitioners, she said, and notify the county that we believe this is an abuse of the public record system. I also alerted the State Real Estate Commission because you know what's a huge no-no? Filing fraudulent zoning petitions to disrupt competitors' property developments, especially when the person filing stands to financially benefit if the property gets seized or sold cheaply. Meanwhile, Linda and the other residents weren't sitting on their hands. They organized a town hall and invited local press. When I arrived, the room was full, not just with neighbors, but reporters holding notepads and cameras. Linda stepped up first. For years, our HOA was used not to protect our community, but to enrich a select few. She presented the history of fines and permit obstructions, testimony from former homeowners, the pattern of forced sales leading back to the same developer. And now, after being voted out, those same bad actors are using county-level systems to keep up their harassment. That's when I took the mic. We followed every rule. We paid every fee. We documented every approval. We will not be bullied. And I'm pleased to announce we are taking legal steps not just to protect this build, but to prevent this abuse from ever happening again. The crowd erupted in applause. 2 days later, the county issued a public statement. After review, the zoning petition filed against my name's property has been determined to be without merit. The original subdivision plat remains valid. No further action will be taken. They also quietly began an investigation into the petitioner's motives. While the county didn't name names, I knew exactly who was under that microscope. Here's where things got serious. The State Real Estate Commission opened a formal inquiry. Turns out filing frivolous zoning complaints isn't just unethical, it can lead to license suspension for developers and real estate professionals. Karen's brother-in-law, his firm had to freeze all pending acquisitions while under investigation. And as for Karen herself, remember those environmental fines she slapped on me? Turns out she'd pocketed some of those fees over the years without board approval. That's embezzlement. And while I didn't press criminal charges, others did. By the time my framing crew hammered in the final nails for the roof, Karen's world had collapsed. Her brother-in-law lost his license. Karen faced a civil suit from other former homeowners. My bill proceeded without a single further challenge. And the kicker, the new HOA board, the one the residents had elected, publicly apologized for the previous administration's behavior and waived all future construction fees for my project as a gesture of goodwill. But 8 months later, they stood in the great room of our finished home and sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. It wasn't just a house, it was a statement. This community belongs to the people who live here, I told my wife. Not to bullies, not to power-hungry board members, to families, to neighbors. Linda and the other new board members joined us for a quiet housewarming. No drama, no fines, just good people who cared about their home and each other. If you thought Karen was finished, you are going to want to hear what happened when she tried to sue me for damages. To be continued, I wish I could say that was the end of it. Karen lost her power. Her family's shady development business collapsed. My dream home was finally standing tall, solid, and beautiful. But no, like a bad penny, Karen just kept turning up. About 2 months after moving in, I received a letter, notice of legal action, from Karen's newly hired attorney. The claim, intentional defamation, harassment, and financial damages resulting from the loss of professional and personal opportunities. In plain English, Karen was suing me. She claimed that by exposing her schemes publicly, I had ruined her standing in the community, caused emotional distress, triggered financial hardship through baseless accusations. And get this, she was asking for $250,000 in damages, $250 grand for holding her accountable. The audacity. I called Carla immediately. She chuckled before I even finished reading the letter. Typical. She's grasping at straws, but we'll handle it. Carla filed a response within the week, denying all allegations, asserting that every statement made was truthful and supported by documented evidence, filing a counterclaim for malicious prosecution and abusive process, that last part. It meant that if Karen lost this case, she'd owe me. As the lawsuit moved into the discovery phase, things got even juicier. Karen's own emails and financial records, subpoenaed by Carla, revealed she had instructed board members to delay or deny approvals without proper cause. She personally profited from the community impact fees she invented. She used HOA funds to cover personal expenses, including travel and spa treatments. Worse, an internal email showed Karen telling Gregory, remember him to bury them in paperwork until they fold. Intent to harass documented. The trial wasn't some drawn-out high-profile event, just a small courtroom in Maricopa County. But for me, it was the final battleground. Karen sat across from me dressed like she was going to a funeral. Gregory wasn't there, neither was her brother-in-law. They'd both settled their respective legal troubles quietly. Karen's lawyer tried to argue that public accusations had destroyed her personal and professional life. Carla calmly laid out the bylaws and automatic approval clause, evidence of Karen's coordinated obstruction efforts, witness statements from multiple residents and former homeowners, the pattern of financial gain tied directly to her abuses of power. It didn't take the jury long. Karen's lawsuit dismissed with prejudice, meaning she couldn't file again. Then came the best part. The jury awarded me $50,000 in damages for legal costs and malicious prosecution. Karen not only failed to take a penny from me she owed me, and with interest if she didn't pay promptly. I later learned Karen tried to sell her house, what was left of her equity, after all the lawsuits and fines. The new HOA board placed a lien on her property for the unpaid fines she'd illegally waived for herself during her time in power. She couldn't sell until those were paid. Eventually, the house went into foreclosure. Karen moved out quietly. No goodbyes, no more backyard, wine parties, no more HOA dictatorship, just silence. Under the new HOA leadership, the community transformed. Rules were enforced fairly. No secret meetings, no ridiculous fees, no harassment of homeowners trying to improve their properties. Linda became the new architectural review chair. She personally oversaw new applications, and guess what? 3 new homes were approved with 0 delays. Residents felt safe to build and remodel again. One crisp autumn evening, I stood in my completed backyard. My wife joined me, a cup of coffee in hand. "We did it," she said, looking out over the property. "No," I corrected gently. "The community did it. We stood up, we fought back, and we won." A small crowd gathered for our housewarming. Neighbors who had once stayed silent now laughed and chatted freely. No fear. No Karen bullies thrive when no one pushes back. But when you do, when you know the rules gather allies and refuse to back down, even the most powerful tyrants can be defeated, and in this case, they end up paying you for the privilege. If you thought this was satisfying, wait till you hear how Karen's attempt to move to a new neighborhood didn't go quite as planned. To be continued, you'd think after losing her lawsuit and her house, Karen would have taken the hint. But nope, a few months later, word got around that she tried to move into a different community about 5 miles down the road, a cozy little subdivision with, you guessed it, another HOA. But this time her reputation got there first. Apparently during their application process, she attempted to run for a seat on their HOA board. Even before closing on the house, the new community president, an older gentleman named Frank, recognized her name from a county bulletin on HOA abuse cases. "Thanks, but no thanks," he told her. "We like to keep things peaceful around here." Karen's offer was rescinded. The house sale fell through, and as far as I know, she's renting an apartment now with no HOA at all. The irony. She spent years using HOA rules to control others. Now she has no community, no influence, and no power left. But this story was never really about Karen. It was about standing up to abuse, about proving that even the most complicated, frustrating, and downright petty bureaucracies can be challenged and defeated with persistence, knowledge, and community support. My wife and I still live in the dream home. Karen tried so hard to stop. We've planted trees where she once tried to slap us with environmental fines. We built a front porch that got concerned comments from Gregory. And every time I sit on that porch with a cup of coffee, I don't just see the house. I see a victory for fairness, for neighbors who refuse to be bullied, for justice. Since Karen left, the neighborhood has thrived. 3 new families have moved in and built homes without any of the nightmare delays. The new HOA board holds open meetings with transparent votes. No more secret fines or last-minute policy changes, and the once divided community, now closer than ever. Funny how getting rid of one bad apple can heal an entire orchard. If you're watching this and facing your own HOA nightmare, remember, read every bylaw, keep every document and email. Don't be afraid to get legal help early. And most importantly, find allies in your community. Bullies count on silence and fear. But when you speak up and stand together, they lose their power. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA or a Karen in your neighborhood? What's the most ridiculous fine or rule you've ever faced? Drop your story in the comments below. Let's build a space where we can share vent and help each other fight back just like I did. And if you found this story satisfying, give it a like, share it with a friend who's battling HOA madness, and subscribe for more real-life tales of standing up for what's right. Remember, justice might take time, but it always arrives.